Hello YouTube, Everyday Oppression here. So I wanted to do an online survey basically by the Canadian Liberal government. So if any of you don't know, the Liberal government is in charge of Canada right now, with our Prime Minister being Justin Trudeau. To all the American viewers, he's kind of like our president, except not Americanized.
Because it's 2015.
But so Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government have created this online survey called MyDemocracy to ask us everyday Canadians about how we feel about our democracy and our government. So I'm going to share this with you. So let's begin. All right, so the beginning here starts at MyDemocracy.ca. Have your say about our democracy. MyDemocracy.ca is an innovative way to join the national conversation on electoral reform. By answering a few questions, you can draw a picture of your democratic values. You can share your results with friends. It only takes a few minutes to answer, and your feedback will help shape a healthier democracy. Well, let's see what these questions entail, shall we? Canadians should have the option to cast their vote online in federal elections, even if it is less secure. Strongly disagree, somewhat should have the option to cast their vote online. I'm somewhat neutral on that one. Members of Parliament should reflect the diversity of Canadian society, even if it means putting in place special measures to increase the representation of certain groups. Canada is a multicultural nation. We have tons of Asians, blacks, whites, Native Americans, or Native Canadians in some circles. So we have a broad range of different cultures and different people within our society. So even if it means putting in place special measures to increase the representation of certain groups, I like Canadian values, and that should be for all groups, not uplifting certain ones. I'll go neutral. There should be greater diversity of views in Parliament. Diversity of race, diversity of color, or diversity of ideas? I'm going to say neutral on that one. Eligible voters should not be forced to vote. Voting is a privilege and a right of a citizen in that country, so eligible voters should not be forced to vote. I actually agree with that. And the reason why I agree with that is because it is our right to vote or not to vote, depending on the situation, depending on who is running. We may not feel any connection with the runner-ups of the politicians that are, obviously vying for our vote. So, yeah. Governments should have to negotiate their policy decisions with other parties in Parliament, even if it is less clear who is accountable for the resulting policy. I guess some would agree. A party that wins the most seats in an election should still have to compromise with other parties, even if it means reconsidering some of its policies. So does that mean that when a conservative government wins, that they still have to negotiate with a liberal side politician party, even if it means reconsidering some of its policies? Does this only apply to our conservative government, or does this include the liberal as well? Neutral. The voting age of federal elections should be lowered. No, it should not. 18 and over is the eligibility of an adult to have the power of voting in our system. Should the voting age be lowered? No, I do not think so, because this is a way for the Liberal government to manipulate younger people who are led more by their feelings than their brain, whereas the older people who have more basis in knowledge within our politics and, the happenings of that, will make a more reasoned voting choice based on logical thinking and not feelings. So I am definitely going to say no to that. Members of Parliament should always act in the interests of their constituents, even if it means going against their own party. I'm going to say neutral to this one. Ensuring that most individuals are elected from groups that are currently underrepresented in Parliament should be a top priority. that more individuals are elected from groups that are currently underrepresented. No, I disagree with that. You know, you're focusing on people who are marginalized or, you know, part of a minority group instead of basing it on the merit and the hard work and experience of the people who are running for those positions. So you've essentially shifted it from an objective standpoint to a more subjective one. So it's based on what somebody looks or what group they're associated with or even what label they use versus their own merit. So I'm going to say strongly disagree. Eligible voters who do not vote in election should be fined. No. This goes back to the previous question where, you know, everybody has a right to vote and everybody should have a right not to vote. So why should somebody be fined? I mean, what if somebody can't get to the voting polls or they are busy working and they can't get to it? Certain companies will allow a person the time off in order to go vote. Actually, I think it's part of our law. But sometimes people just can't go out and vote, whether they aren't able to or something's restricting them or they simply don't want to vote. I don't think we should be charged. That's stupid. It is better for several parties to have to govern together than for one party to make all the decisions in government, even if it takes longer for government to get things done. Well, but isn't that the whole point of one side winning and having your party make the final decisions in our government? What's the whole point of competing with each other for these seats and for these votes and to get on top in order to win and, you know, put through your own policies if like you're just wanting to work together anyways? So I'm going to say somewhat disagree. Members of parliament should always support the position of their party, even if it means going against the wishes of their constituents. Members of parliament should always support the position of their party. I'm going to say somewhat agree on that because they should tag along with what their policies are and what their hopes in regards to changing Canada for the better. So they have to sort of support their own ideas in order, because that's why people voted them in. So if they get in and they don't, then what's the point? There should be a limit to the length of federal election campaign periods. I guess. Sure, anything that'll speed up the process but still get your point across, the better. I strongly agree. Online voting in federal elections would increase voter participation. Somewhat agree, I guess. It should always be clear which party is accountable for decisions made by government, even if this means that decisions are only made by one party. It should always be clear which party is accountable. Okay. So again, does that include the Liberal government? Does that include you, Mr. Justin Trudeau? I'm going to say somewhat agree. A ballot should be easy to understand, even if it means voters have fewer options to express their preferences. A ballot should be easy to understand. Well, it seems pretty straightforward to me, because every time I voted before, you had a list of the electorals and that you wanted to vote for. So it was basically party members within your area that were part of the side that you would choose. So more right-leaning versus left-leaning, and those participants, which would help get more electoral votes in order to get your party in. So it seems pretty standard to me. I'm just going to say neutral to that. Voters should be able to express multiple preferences on the ballot, even if this means that it takes longer to count the ballots and announce the election result. So does that mean that we get like one primary vote and then we get a secondary and a tertiary? Basically, who we like above another candidate? That seems like a waste of time, really. And it's sounding more like a popularity contest or something. I don't know.
I'm sorry that people are so jealous of me, but I can't help it that I'm popular.
The day of a federal election should be a statutory holiday. Sure, I like a free day. Who doesn't? There should be parties in Parliament that represent the views of all Canadians, even if some are radical or extreme. Well, there's got to be broad views of Canadians. It's not like we're one uniform hive mind or something.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. Resistance is futile.
But even if some are radical or extreme. Yes, I think so. I think there should be a platform for those who are deemed radical or extreme. So as long as they're not outside the boundaries of hate crimes, hate speech, promoting, intolerance, or promoting, abuse of any kind, then yeah. But if we can do this in a civil manner, which I think most Canadians are for, then yes, it should. I'm going to say somewhat agree. Yeah. All right. Proposition 20 of 20. Ooh. Canadians should have the option to cast their ballot online in federal elections, even if this increases the cost of elections. Does it come out of the taxpayers' money, though? Because if it does, no. And if it doesn't, and it comes out of, wherever they get the money from, then sure. In today's modern era where everything is online, I'm going to say somewhat agree to this just because it would help a lot of people, especially those who might possibly miss going out and casting their vote. So I'm going to say somewhat agree. Oh, now we're on to preferences. Jesus, there's more? All right, which would you prefer? A government where one party governs and can make decisions on its own, or a government where several parties have to collectively agree before a decision is made? I feel like if we had several parties just talking constantly, and there'd be a lot of bickering, and I don't think anything would get done. So I think one party, after being voted in by the majority of Canadians, should run the household, I think. One party governs and is solely accountable for policy outcomes, or several parties must cooperate to govern and they share accountability for policy outcomes. One party should be solely accountable. That way we keep track of their policies that they put through, and if they work, they should get the reward for it of recognition and good ideas. And if it doesn't, then we can point the finger at them. Again, if you just keep adding more parties, you're just cluttering everything up and graying everything, I think. So it's a waste of time. So one party. So which best describes your views? Ballots should be as simple as possible so that everybody understands how to vote, or ballots should allow everybody to express their preferences in detail. Make it as easy as possible. Like,
ain't nobody got time for that.
Members of parliament that do what their party promised, even if it means going against what their constituents want, or members of parliament that do what their constituents want, even if it means going against what their party promised. That's putting the power in like individuals' hands, and sometimes individuals are led by their emotions and not their brains, and sometimes they're not really full on 100% logical about how the system works or what's the best for everybody. I feel like that would be more of a personal choice versus the collective. So I'm going to say the MPs that do what their party promised. I think if you make that promise, you stick with it. Which best describes your views? No further action needs to be taken to ensure that those elected to Parliament better reflect the diversity of the population they represent, or further action needs to be taken to ensure that those elected to Parliament better reflect the diversity of the population they represent. This is a very wordy question. Like, how much fucking diversity do we fucking need? Just get the job done. Throw in your policies, get it passed, and help the best that you can. Like why is the focus on diversity instead of getting the job done? I'm going to say no further action. Canadians should have the option to cast their ballots online in federal elections, even if the security or privacy of online voting cannot be guaranteed, or Canadians should continue to vote using paper ballots at a polling station, even if it is less accessible for some voters. Ooh, this one's a bit difficult because the more that you can do online, the more that people can make multiple accounts, the more that they could possibly create whole new people and get new votes. We don't know if that's actually going to be tampered with or not. So I prefer paper ballots and actual, like, you're standing right there and signing and then they counting it. I like that because it's harder to try and manipulate. So I'm going to say continue to vote using paper ballots. All right, we're over the 50 mark, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of an intermission break. If for any of you are wondering, I'm having a mocha right now, and it's fabulous. So, which best describes your views? Voting in federal elections is an obligation, or voting in federal elections is a choice? Ooh. So are we a slave to government, or is a government slave to its people? I'm going to say voting in federal elections is a choice. Still, we deserve that freedom to either vote or not to vote. So voting is a choice. Which would you prefer? Having many small parties in parliament representing many different views, or having a few big parties, that try to appeal to a broad range of people? Duh. The less parties and the less bickering we have in government, the more successful I think it would be. So smaller parties won't have the influence or the power because they would be so small that they wouldn't really affect anything. So a few big parties. Members of parliament that spend more time in their constituency working with constituents, or members of parliament that spend more time on Parliament Hill working on the issues that matter to their constituents. Yeah, I want the party members to be working. I don't want them spending more time with their constituency because, they might slack off. They might get lazy. They might party. Or, like a certain prime minister, take selfies. Just a little bit more to the right, Justin, and go. Members of parliament that always support policies that they think are best for their constituents, even if their constituents disagree, or members of parliament that always support policies their constituents want, even if the MPs themselves personally disagree. Well, yeah, you're a leader, so somewhat of your personal values and personal views should be taken into account here. And it should be what's best for their constituents, not what their constituents think. Besides, it would just be more about emotions versus logical thinking. So I'm going to say do what they feel is best. Yes. Priorities. Please select the priorities from the list below that are most important to you. Here we go. All right, governments that collaborate with other parties in parliament. Not really. Strengthening the link between voter intention and the election of representatives. Governments that consider all viewpoints before making a decision. Yeah, that would be true. Increasing voter turnout. Governments that can be easily held to account by voters. Yes. MPs that focus on what is best for the country. Yes. Ensuring the security of the voting process. Yes. Ensuring the voting process is easy to understand. I'm going to pass on that one just because, most of us are adults and we can take the time to understand our voting process. If they lower the age down to 14, 15, where teenagers don't really understand politics as much, then it might be important, but to me it's not. Governments with strong representation from every region. Doesn't matter to me. Allowing voters to express a wide range of preferences when voting? No, just pick one and stick with it. Governments that can make decisions quickly? Quickly sometimes means that you pass it through without doing it properly, or sometimes messy, so I'm going to say no to that. Ability to vote online during elections. I'm going to say that's not as important, so no. Better representation of groups that are currently underrepresented in parliament. I don't care. I just want someone to do the job so that everybody can benefit. I don't care what color your skin is, or what label you are, or what minority group or majority group you come from. Just get the job done. If you are incapable of doing a job for the whole of the country of Canada, then you shouldn't even be there. MPs who focus primarily on the interests of their local community. No, this is the federal government. They have to think about the whole, not the individual communities. Increasing the presence of smaller parties in parliament. Nope. So here we go. A little bit more personal information. This will be the fun part. What is your gender? Male. In which year were you born? Well, I'm 31, so I'll let you all do the math. What is the highest level of education that you have completed? Well, I have a bachelor's, thank you, that I paid for all by myself. What occupational area do you work in? I've worked in so many different things. I'm like a work whore.
You're a whore. Wear your whore makeup, you whore.
Which of the following best describes your combined household income before taxes? Less than 20,000, sadly. Let's sigh. What is the first language that you learned? English. Generally speaking, how interested are you in politics? Years ago, I really wasn't, because there was a few years I did not vote because I did not accept the members of parliament who were applying to be prime minister or members of parliament. So now I am very interested. How frequently do you follow news and current events? Several times each week. I'm going to say daily. Well, with the fake news epidemic and horrible journalism that we have now succumbed to. Thanks, society. Do you identify with any of the following groups? Visible minority, First Nations, Inuit, Métis, persons with disabilities, and the LGBTQ2. Well, since I like sucking dick, I guess I'm the last one, so click.
What a fag.
Please provide your postal code so we can determine your region. Don't you guys look at this one, okay? This is private. Profile. In general, how satisfied are you with the way democracy works in Canada? I'm going to say very satisfied, because I like the way our system is run, except for current events. That's my own personal dislike for our current Prime Minister, Justin fucking Trudeau. How closely have you followed the public discussions on electoral reform in Canada? Somewhat closely. How often have you discussed federal electoral reform with others? Again, somewhat often. How often do you vote in federal elections? Most of the time. What are the biggest barriers preventing you from voting? Please select all that apply. Lack of time, lack of information, disability or mobile issues, voting location isn't convenient, do not feel included, frustration with politics, don't like the voting system. I'm just going to say frustration with politics. That's really the only reason I think so. Loading your results. Huh.
Now, you are Guardian!
My democracy is decisive and accountable. Guardians tend to favor decisive governments that can take swift action and offer a clear line of accountability to voters. Sounds about right. While they expect members of parliament to faithfully represent their constituents, they also believe, more than other groups, that party loyalty should be respected. They tend to believe that larger parties can govern and represent Canadians in a more efficient and effective way. Well, that sounds pretty good to me, I think. Who are Guardians? Let's see which group I'm associated with, shall we? The median age of the Guardians is 56. Male, 66%. Female, 34%. Other, asterisks. Rural is 21%. Suburban is 33%. And urban is 46%. So I'm under the age of the median age. Definitely male in that majority. And definitely more of urban since I live in a city, so... You must provide an email. Submit now to my Lord and Savior, Mr. Justin Trudeau. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I did my online survey of MyDemocracy.ca and how I feel personally about Canadian government. Those are a lot of subjective kind of questionnaires, and I'm not too thrilled about it, but I did it. So to all my Canadian subscribers and followers, did you guys do this survey as well? And let me know what you guys think. And to all my American followers, how do you find Canadian politics? Do you find it to be so foreign, or do you find it to be similar with yours? Let me know. Anyway, guys, so remember, take care of yourselves, stay warm, and we will all talk to you later. Bye, guys.